My name is Olivia. I am the Community Engagement Specialist at Xencelabs, and today we are joined with Lauren Brown. Lauren, good to see you.
It's good to see you too. It's nice to meet everybody.
Yeah, so feel free to, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you.
Like Olivia said, my name is Lauren Brown. I'm originally from New Jersey and currently live in Austin, Texas. I have a background of art and my entire life. I've been drawing since I was a small child and continued my education from high school to college to grad school at Savannah College of Art and Design. And then I got my start in the animation industry and ended up in the game industry. And my current role is as an art director at a game studio called Wildseed Games. So that's a very, very brief background about me.
That's so cool. What a fun adventure to go on in your art and everything.
Thank you. Yeah, it has been really interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so with our series, this month we are focusing on Women's History Month. And a lot of our questions are based to women identifying people. So the first question that I have for you is, have you ever dealt with being stereotyped in the workplace, like being too assertive or our appearance or any boundaries, anything like that?
Oh yes. I have plenty of stories and situations about that, because obviously not only am I a woman, but I'm a Black woman. So I have to deal with double the amount of discrimination and just general otheringness that can tend to occur in a workplace that's not, a majority POC or, women-owned workplace. So as I started my career in animation, what I had quickly realized was that most women who were speaking up and speaking out about things that would happen to them in the workplace, what would happen was that they would slowly start to get pushed out of the industry and the studios and lose their jobs. So I quickly had to learn how to adapt to that. And, I started by keeping my head down and just like doing my own work and just not really using my voice. And I was eventually asked to be a lead. So it was at that point where I had to start using my voice and I had to start being assertive. And I definitely faced pushback from a lot of people when I was a lead, just because, they would always doubt my authority. They would always doubt if it was even me who was the lead. Oftentimes people would come over to our pod and look at the man who was sitting next to me for, instructions and feedback when I was the manager sitting in that pod. And I would have to gently remind them like, hey, like, actually, you can direct that question to me. I'm the lead on this team. And so, that's like some of the just small examples of what could happen. And oftentimes they were small. Oftentimes they were very, you kind of like look at a situation and be like, did that really just happen? Like, I'm not sure. Am I blowing it out of proportion? But the issue is that it can often be death by a thousand cuts, because when you're a woman or when you're a Black person, or when you're both, or when you're, like any kind of minority group in the game industry, oftentimes what you can tend to get faced with is having just a bunch of microaggressions, and they pile up over time and they start to wear down on you. And so it makes it so much more of an uncomfortable working environment when you have to face that almost every day. You have to brace yourself, you have to defend yourself, you have to code switch, which is basically what you have to do in order to assimilate into the industry and try to put on a mask like you're somebody else, try to talk more professionally, try to take all the vernacular out of your language, right? And that's often what we have to do in order to protect ourselves and protect our careers. But as I started to move through my career and started to see more and learn more just in games and animation, I started to realize that my voice was one that needed to be heard in the industry. And people would benefit from hearing my voice because I was the only person oftentimes in the room who even looked like me. And so I stopped holding back my voice and I stopped keeping my head down, and I started to speak out about certain things. And what I actually ended up finding out was that people did want to hear it, and people did take it to heart, for better or for worse. Some people stumbled through and some people actually, course corrected immediately. But I started to become taken more seriously, because I worked really hard to show myself as somebody who could be undeniable. Because oftentimes when they say when you're Black, when you're a person of color, or when you're a woman, you have to work twice as hard. I feel like I've often had to work 4 times as hard, but because I've done that, I've proven that my voice is something who is valuable and something that does deserve to be heard, because people had to take me seriously. And so that's where I am today. Like, I'm now very outspoken about issues, and obviously very still professional, and I don't argue with people, and I don't attack people for anything that they've done, but it's just being courteous about how to bring up the feedback, and working on these things together, or just giving them kind of like tools to improve in the future. And then doing that things like that take energy, but if you have the time and energy, that's something that is good to do. But it can be difficult to endure, because we have all these levels of difficulty to navigate through before we can even get there.
Wow, that's really inspiring. I think there's a lot of young professionals out there that can really take what you've said and kind of learn from that. So with that in mind, what advice would you give to young girls who are entering the gaming industry, the art industry, and are afraid to have that voice, even if they're not in a leadership type role?
It's really, first off, important to have boundaries with what you are willing to do and what you're not willing to do. And when I first started in the industry, I definitely didn't have any boundaries. I would be subjected to working crazy long hours and, lower pay, and again, not advocating for myself. It's okay to advocate for yourself. And I know that when you're new, it doesn't feel as comfortable to do so. So in order to feel like you have more armor, find the people who will advocate with you. You find your allies, find the people who stand next to you or stand by you, and can kind of like interrupt the meeting if somebody's interrupted you, and say, hey, actually, so-and-so is going to say something. Can you hear them speak? I definitely had people like that for me. And it's been super valuable to getting my voice heard in meetings where, people were not willing to hear me. People were just willing to say their own piece. So finding your allies, finding your people, and, getting that advocacy, and talking to, your friends or your, people, just about what you're going through. Because when we first start, especially, we feel very insecure, and we can have the all famous imposter syndrome, which is the thing that you feel that you don't belong there, or that you're not good enough, or et cetera, et cetera. When you talk to people, you will be surprised by how many others are going through the exact same thing as you at any point in their career. People who I have admired for 20, 30, years, like that have been in their industry, they still face imposter syndrome. And I do too. And, I've been in the industry 10 years. I'm an art director now. And I still have, like, every day, I'm just like, I hope I'm doing the right thing. I hope I'm, not making the wrong decision. I hope blah, blah, blah. I hope I'm good enough. I hope they don't find me out. And so, like, know that everybody is facing that. So you're definitely not alone. And talking those things out really helps boost that confidence, or at least boost that feeling. It's like, okay, I can acknowledge that I'm feeling this, but at least I know that I'm not the only one. And that makes it a lot easier.
That's amazing. Yeah, I definitely could have used that when I was younger. I feel like everybody, regardless of industry, I think when you're going into a more male dominated field, it can be so scary,
Yeah.
I think that advice is just, it's astounding, honestly. I wish I had you when I was younger.
I wish I had this version of me when I was younger too.
Oh my
believe me.
If only we could look at our younger self and tell them so many things.
Oh yes. Oh yes. There are so many things that I signed myself up for, and so many things I subjected myself to.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking back and I'm like, why did I do that? But I did need all of the experiences to learn how to do better. And it was through experience that I've learned. So, if, like, another piece of advice that I want to give is, if you do mess up, if you do get something wrong, we're all on this journey together. We're all part of that journey. So if you mess up, know that it's not the end of the world. It's not like, like, especially if you're in a creative industry, like, we're not, having to save lives or like do surgery. Like, we are people who learn by mistakes and doing again and doing it better the next time, and we build on our careers. And so look back at those mistakes that you've made and appreciate them, because they got you to where you are. And as you're making those mistakes, just know that in the future, you're going to be looking back and saying, okay, like, I did that. Now I know not to do that ever again. Yeah. And it's okay.
Yeah. That's great advice. That's so good, though. I think when you're younger and you're jumping in, you're looking at everybody like, is that right? And then you're wrong. And you like have almost like a panic attack, because you're so worried that this one baby mistake is going to ruin your career. And Oh man. Let me think back to my younger self. Goodness me.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. Sorry, I realized we jumped right into it, but
You're totally fine.
So another thing that I was thinking about when we were talking about like Women's History Month and the importance of being like a woman in the workplace, is mental health. And I know with mental health, I think a lot of times, regardless of industry, there's this weird disconnect between having mental health and like putting focus towards that and then being too emotional as a woman. So I know that earlier you said you didn't really feel like you had a voice and you had to find it. Did you ever find yourself like having to soften your tone to sound more pleasant?
Oh, all the time. All the time. That's literally like I had to adapt to that. I've been, I'd worked in corporate for 6 years, so I definitely had to, again, that's about the code switching and about just editing yourself to communicate with people so that they take you seriously. And I never wanted to come off as the angry Black woman. And I say that with air quotes because that's the stereotype that we've been subjected to. But I've had to do that in order to pivot. And one specific example I can think of is that back when I was in my first gaming job, my manager had like in a one-on-one, he told me, he was like, yeah, like you're intimidating. And I'm like, am I? Like, what? Like I love hugs. I'm a huge nerd. I have Pokemon all over my desk and just like toys. Yeah, right. And like I love colorful things and I'm very frilly and small and soft. That's how I see myself. And so when he said I was intimidating, I was like, first off, I don't even know where he's getting that from because I haven't dropped my code switch with you. And I was like, oh, it's because I look like this. Like I'm just a Black woman. So he probably just has ascribed the default intimidating to my character profile that he's put in his head. But because of that, I took that and I was like, okay, he thinks I'm intimidating. I'm going to let him think I'm intimidating and just be intimidating. Why not?
Yes.
It basically meant he gave me permission to be that because he already had stereotyped me as such. So, and I'm like, okay, I'm still here, even though he thinks I'm intimidating. So that obviously means that's okay. So I'm just going to do that.
Okay.
And ever since then, that's when I really started to keep using my voice and keep calling things out. And then we had a learning class at my job that was teaching us how to communicate with others and how to manage up, which is the thing that you have to do in order to manage your managers. And one of the techniques that they said was that you can use something called your left-hand column. And what the left-hand column is that you have your right-hand column, which is the things that you're actually saying, and the left-hand column are all the things that you've edited out to say the things you're actually saying. Speaking from your left-hand column means that you're saying the unedited, unfiltered version of what you wanted to say. And so in order to speak from that freely, you would preface it by saying, hey, can I speak from my left-hand column really quickly? And then give whatever feedback you wanted to give honestly. And usually, it would set kind of a foundation of somebody who you're talking to be like, okay, I'm about to receive something like real right now. Let's brace ourselves and listen. And it would kind of clear the air in order to let you do that. It provides a language to let you do that. So I always found that really useful. And that's what I started really using with my manager. And I found it easier to give feedback that way because he was already expecting something harsh and usually wasn't even as bad. So through techniques and through learning, I've learned how to present the things that I'm wanting to say without coming off, as some kind of angry person. And I'm a generally even-tempered person anyway. So the way I talk to people is usually not aggressive or not considered aggressive, but even still having techniques and languages to use to kind of diffuse the situation is always really helpful. So that's something I've had to learn along the years.
I love that. I'm probably going to take some notes from that because I don't know if you've seen, but sometimes like I'll type an email and like somebody made this video and it's like you type an email as a woman and then you're going back and you're deleting.
Always. Yeah.
Especially exclamation points. Like I always felt like we are required to sound pleasant by throwing exclamation points at everywhere. And I'm not yelling at you. I'm just like, hello.
Yeah. I have to often go back through my emails and edit out my exclamation points because what I've had to do was I was like, okay, what if I was a man sending this email? Would it sound like this? Probably not. And so then I would go back and edit it in order for it to sound just like how I want it to sound. And I know that it's difficult because it's over text. And so we want to soften the edges of it as much as possible.
Right.
But we shouldn't have to do that.
I know.
It's so frustrating.
We still are.
And yet we still are. And I definitely still do this too, where I'm like, okay, every single sentence I just sent had an exclamation mark in it. I have to fix this. Like, this is not good.
I once worked in a role, and I was sending emails constantly to like the team to like give updates on like what was happening. And I was once approached by a coworker, unfortunately was a man, and he said, "You're being incredibly rude via email."
What?
I'm only responding the way that you do. So is that a reflection of you being rude to me? Let's talk. Let's unpack that.
You said that to him?
I did.
And how did he respond?
The look, the male.
I know exactly the look. It's just like,
I can't.
It's like that blinking meme, just like, it's like, what?
With the math going around.
Yeah, that one too.
Yeah. But it was then, that was the time when I found my voice, and I realized it's okay to be confident and saying, why is it okay for you, but it's not okay for me? And it was at that point where I was like, there is a difference between like being assertive and being rude. And it's okay to tell somebody, hey, you did this. I felt like that you were setting the precedence that it was okay. Now we can establish what's okay and not okay for both of us as equals.
Yep. Exactly. Just like straightforward approach. Because another thing that I realized too in my language of how I type, of how I speak to people, is that I often say, it's like, oh, like, we should do this, or I want you to do this. And actually in therapy, you talk about mental health. I have a therapist, and in therapy, I actually developed this technique of, I need you to do this, not I want you to, or, oh, can we do this? Like this kind of like very passive way of speaking. When you say, I need you to do this, that lets them know that you mean business. And it's not a rude thing to say. It's just, you're stating what you need from that person. If they have a task and they're not doing it, you need to let them know that, like, no, like this needs to get done. And that's a part of language that I've had to finesse over the years too, of like adopting that more assertive stance of like, this is an absolute, as your manager, this is what I'm saying. And it doesn't give them any room to refute it, because that's also their job that they're supposed to be doing.
Have you received any like pushback from anyone that said like, once you changed your language from want to need?
Yeah, sometimes like it was oftentimes a specific manager that would do this and be like, oh, like, I don't like the way that you brought this issue up. And I'd be like, this issue needs to be brought up. And I would just like always lay everything out and state my case, is like, because when I decided to be assertive, I also had to make a conscious effort to know exactly like, what I was talking about. And unfortunately, this is something that we have to do. We have to be confident in what we're saying. And in order to do that, I had to learn everything I could about what I was even saying. And because I did that, I would be able to lay out everything in front of him and be like, listen, this is the situation. This is where we're at. This is where we need to go. So this is why I made this decision. I could always back it up. I could always defend myself. And so in order to be able to enable me to use that language and feel confident in using it, I had to back up what I said. I had to present a case for myself to stand on.
Wow. Just feel like we're just having to work. Like it's almost like running a marathon with a rock in our shoe.
Yeah.
Like, from the outside, we're all running the same, but you have no idea the struggles that we're dealing with internally as a woman or as a person of color or both.
Yes.
I can relate. So I am Filipino Chinese. Nobody knows that. And I immediately get put in blocks of what I look like. So for me, my thing is I've been put in the box of a Latina, and that's okay. I have, love and respect for that community, but I don't belong nor resonate.
Yeah.
So then I'm receiving the stereotypes of that community, and I can't begin to understand what they go through. And then when I do have to define my community, I am then put into a different stereotype, still being a woman and having to now battle the people debating what stereotype I belong in.
Yep.
So
whatever box you fit in their
yeah,
brains, they'll try to
we're just
put
going
you
to
in.
move the box.
Yeah. And so like oftentimes what I've had to do is like, no, I exist so far outside of this box because, when people see you as this box, they they tend to stereotype you first off, but they also tend to use you as their litmus test for, okay, they're from this community. How would this community respond if X, Y, and Z? You were the one person I know from this community. I'm going to ask you all these questions. And people are not aware that that takes energy, and that is also very othering. And sometimes, like, I appreciate that we're trying to do things to to like make better choices for our community and diversity, but I am not the only person from my community that can speak to these issues. I am an individual, and I have one brain, not everybody's brain. And so the things that I say may not necessarily be what the other Black woman says, may not necessarily be what the Black man says, or the woman that's neurodiverse, or like, et cetera. Like, there's many communities I belong in, and I'm formed by my life experiences, but I don't get to be seen as this nuanced, complex human. I get to be seen as the Black woman who works with me. She probably knows what's what. I think she's woke. And I'm like, I'm woke, but I'm still learning. And I've made mistakes, and I'm still going to make mistakes. And that's okay. But because I'm the one representative, it's harder. It's worse for me to make mistakes in the eyes of others, because I should be the example of the right way to do things. And that is a lot of pressure, and that is a lot of energy, and that's a lot of stress. And so when you go to people, just like advice for people who might be listening to this, who are not in a minority community or not in certain communities, when you go to people asking them for advice of how to do things the right way for their community, just know that that's going to take some mental energy, and be cognizant of that. It's not that you can't do it, but try to arm yourself with information on top of them telling you what they think. Because again, they're one individual, they may make the wrong choice. I very recently made kind of a wrong call at my other job, and I got onto the community, and people were responding negatively to it, and they were like, what is this? And I was like, oh shoot, like I should have been able to call that out. But I'm like, but because I was the only Black woman in the room, was I the only person who could have called this out? Like,
right,
I was the only one who was aware. Why could nobody else have educated themselves? So it shouldn't have to fall on one set of shoulders.
I think, and also it would be hard as the only woman in your industry. Then they're asking from a woman's point of view, do you like this? But we don't speak for all women. We speak for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I also still feel like there's this constant pressure now, especially with like the TikTok community and social media becoming way more loud.
Yes.
The right word.
Present.
Very present.
Yeah.
I use the word loud because I think everyone's trying to battle between who's the loudest, whose voice can be heard the farthest, rather than it meaning something. And I think because of that community and that confidence that people are gaining from being behind a phone and behind a screen, I still feel like as a woman, there are so many now like misogynists, and I hate saying that word, that are coming out, and they're putting us into this box of like, oh, you're a female, you're a feminist.
And it's
always, like, yeah. But there's like, why do I have to be put in now a new box? Why as a woman at all are we being placed in boxes that society is saying is okay? That's so mentally draining.
It is. And they will categorize you, and they often will look at you as less than. And then they will think that your bodies belong to them in some way or another. Or if you're not smiling enough, you're aggressive. Or if you're not looking good enough, that they'll make a comment on it. And it's just like, yes, I am a professional woman. I am a professional. I just want to be honestly a professional. And like literally one of my coworkers back at my old job had asked me out like on a date during work hours. I get it. Workplace dating, sure, whatever. But I'm working right now. I am literally a professional person right now. And now I have to deal with the fact that you're looking at me like an object while I have to sit at work making decisions alongside you. And that's never going to create an even playing field. No, and it's just, and it's so frustrating. And that's something else that I definitely had to deal with a lot, was people, thinking that I was just fodder to date, or people thinking I was like, oh, like you want to go out sometime, like, blah, blah, blah. And it's really, especially if they're your managers or if they're your leads, it's very difficult to navigate that situation because they have power over you and your career and with your money. You're messing with my money, man.
I know. I don't want to say that because I got to get that bag. You know what I mean?
Yes. Like, come on, like, we can't do this.
I just want to like uppercut, left hook.
It's like, no, it's like real quick. It's unbelievable. So fortunately, being in a virtual landscape lately, I haven't had to deal with that as much because I've been ahead on a screen. So if I will say like what the pandemic has done for working people, in terms of people who are creative in tech, I feel like I'm very, very fortunate to be in this industry where I had the flexibility to work from home. The advantage that it has given us is that it allows me to be a little bit less seen as an object because you can't physically be in my space. So I can control that scenario. I can control that interaction a little bit better. So I haven't really faced much of that harassment in recent years because it has not been in person. And I'm honestly thankful for that because I don't miss it. I miss working with people, but I don't miss that aspect of it.
Yeah. There's a very fine line between wanting to go back to the office and see people, but also do we want to deal with that?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Exactly.
You had mentioned earlier how like, somebody came up to you and asked you out. Did you ever on the opposite spectrum, like, I don't know for you, but for me, when I first started at a job, I wear makeup and then I gradually take off less until everyone's used to seeing me with my normal face. So it's not so abrupt because I'm haunted by when I was younger. I had an interview and I, put my makeup on. I was by a window for that perfect lighting. And then I went to work the next day and I slept through my alarm. So I just showed up, no makeup. And someone had the audacity to say to me, "Are you okay? You look sick."
Oh my God. You're like, that's my face you're talking about.
You're like, no, but good to know. Like, so since then, I feel like I've had to wear makeup at work in order to combat with that harassment. Because then it's not sexualized, but it's, oh, that's what you look like normally. And have you had to deal with that at all?
I purposefully don't wear makeup.
You're smart.
Under usual situations because I want people to see me for like, this is my standard that I want to set. I can be honest, most days I just don't feel like doing makeup. So I'm not going to sign myself up for it, but I'm also fortunate enough that like my face is generally like, it's, like my skin is okay. Like I don't have anything to conceal. Like,
let's talk about that.
Also Zoom is doing me favors right now, I will admit. So it's not like, there's some like spot, but I've always have tried to just like to not wear makeup or to not put on too much or overdo myself, not overdo, but just like dress up myself too often. I save it for special occasions because this was just a personal choice really, and like whatever choices like other women want to make or other people want to make, it's completely up to them. I love the way makeup looks and I think it's like makeup is fashion. It's awesome.
Yes.
But just honestly most of the time I'm too lazy, so that's like the standard that I set with other people. They're used to seeing me without makeup. And so when I do wear makeup, they like, it's really funny because they look at me, they're like, it's the opposite thing that you have to deal with actually. They're just like, what are you dressed up for today? Or like, where are you going today? They're always just like, what's going on? And it's kind of cool because I'm like, yeah, I'm cute. I know.
You're like,
yeah.
I think that would be my advice to young girls is if you're entering the workforce or if like you're doing Zoom interviews, right? It's okay to want to put on makeup. I think that there should be this like overarching, if you want to do it.
Yeah.
And if someone says something, you can speak up, but also don't be afraid. I think is my thing is, I mean, and I'm speaking to myself now, but like, I shouldn't be afraid to like not wear makeup and then be judged because I look sick.
Yeah. I mean, and it sucks because like, that's what we've had to do to adjust to, again, our environment, but it's not on you if people are treating you differently based on the way you look. That is their problem. And so no matter how you want to present yourself in the workplace, as long as you look professional, you shouldn't come in with pajamas. Like that's just, you don't do that. But I mean, now that we're in Zoom,
we're all wearing pajama bottoms.
Yeah. But when you're in person, like don't wear pajamas, like you're here to work. But no matter how you want to present yourself, no matter how you dress, if people are responding to a perfectly reasonable outfit and trying to, put you down for it or look at you a certain way for it. Again, it's their problem. And I don't want that to deter you from presenting this the way you feel confident.
Yeah.
And that's what I would recommend. It's like dress definitely like dress the way it makes you feel confident, but also be aware of how confident you do feel when you have makeup on, or how confident you do feel when you dress up. Because oftentimes I know that for me, like sometimes, I usually wear my t-shirt and jeans, like, I just don't have the energy. But when I do take the time to dress up and do my hair up and, everything, I do feel more confident. And I do feel more like I'm, like I think I can handle this meeting today.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of women who actually get dressed up in order to feel better, just like mentally, and more like they bolster themselves with their looks. And I do that too, because it does make you feel more comfortable in your own skin. You're like, okay, like I'm presenting myself as this. I call it cosplaying a successful person.
I love that so much. Yes.
You dress for the role that you want to be. And so I'm just like, okay, what if I was a successful person? What does that look like? And I just dress as that. Let me just like look really cute real quick and make myself be my ideal. And then you start to embody that.
As a boss babe real fast.
Exactly. You embody that character and you go out and do it. Yeah. I feel like it's more successful. That's okay to do.
I agree. That's more often
funny.
Than not,
that's who you actually are anyway. So
I love that. Oh, I love that so much. I have one time I wore a whole suit, honey, and walked into a meeting. I was like,
yes,
if the men can do it, then I can.
Because also your whole posture changes when you have that outfit on, right? Like your shoulders go back, chest out, head up, like chin up. You're just like, all right.
Or in some cases, chin down to like.
Chin down. Oh yeah, just like looking at him, eye contact.
Not the side.
Just like you're gonna do what I say. We're gonna get this done, right?
Yep.
All right, we got this, and we can go. But yeah, it changes your whole posture, and people respond to you differently when they see that confidence coming off of you. Yeah. So do what you got to do to make yourself feel confident, because I guarantee it'll be a difference. Even if it's a subtle one, there's a difference.
Yeah, I think so. I think the same could be said for anybody, like, regardless of how they are, just like their gender doesn't matter. Like,
exactly.
You think about like from someone who identifies as a man, like if you have your hair all crazy and you wear a shirt that has stains in it, like you're gonna
holes in it.
Come on, like, but then you dress yourself up and you wear maybe a polo shirt or a nice collared shirt of some sort. You do your hair, blazer.
Yeah,
whatever it may be. I think there should just be like, we should just nix the stereotype that like our work is perceived by how we look.
Yeah, exactly. It shouldn't be that.
Period.
It should, because like what matters most is how you feel.
Right.
How do you feel in this outfit? How do you feel as you present yourself? Do you feel confident? Do you not feel great when you're wearing that wrinkled shirt? And maybe if you need a day where you feel great, maybe change that shirt and just dress yourself up, just for yourself, just for you, internally. It makes a difference.
That's great advice. Is don't dress up for others, dress up for yourself.
Exactly.
So before I end this, is there anything else that you want to add to any young woman entering the professional world, or anyone who is now identifying themselves as a woman, like what to look for, like, and what to do?
What to look for in terms of what? Just like in the industry, or what to avoid?
Really just any advice. I think when I know from my friend who recently started identifying herself as a woman, was not used to the challenges that it comes. That being a woman is riding a dragon on the daily.
Oh yeah.
So what advice would you give?
I mean, we have to ride that dragon the best way we know how to. And riding the dragon in a way that works for you is very important. Don't compromise your ideals for other people. If you have to work in a place where you have to compromise your ideals every day, then try to start looking for something else, because that is going to grate on you, and it's going to drain you, and it's going to take away all of your resources and all of your mental energy. And you're going to be left burnt out and exhausted. So find the people who fit with, more so where you want to go with your ideals, with what you want to do. You shouldn't have to compromise yourself every single day. And I've worked in environments where I've had to, and now I'm working in an environment that I'm not. And it's awesome. I have so much energy. I've gotten so much done, and it feels amazing. So find that place for you. It's okay. And the last thing I'll leave you with too, I know that you talked about mental health earlier, but I'm a woman with ADHD on top of everything else. And I've had to learn how to adjust and work with my own brain. And so if you are a neurodiverse person, if you're a person who just knows that you're forgetful, or knows that you can, drop certain things, be aware of those flaws and work with yourself to adjust and course correct for those flaws. The way your brain works is the way your brain works, but do what you got to do to work around it or work with it, and exploit the parts of, yourself that are good. Not exploit, but, highlight those parts that are good, and make those parts shine, and just work on the parts that are not. And if you need help, therapy is out there. It's okay to get, support and expert help. And be kind to yourself first and foremost, and above all, be kind to yourself. That's a lesson that I'm still learning with me, because I'm the hardest person on myself and my harshest critic.
We all are.
Yeah, don't be mean to yourself, please.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us and for bringing your wisdom, because I'm taking so much from this conversation, and I hope everyone else watching does as well. And yeah, just thank you so much for joining us. This was so much fun.
It's really fun.
So, and then for the future, we will be having, our panel discussion. So in that, we're going to have probably me or my digital marketing manager. Her name is Shannon. One of us will be in the panel with a few other speakers, and then we're just going to have this very open discussion about just being a woman, and how that statement in itself is powerful. Yes. And not assertive or bossy, Yes. So that I'm looking forward to. So I'm going to end the recording.
That sounds good.